Hello everybody, Rudy Briksza here with CoolStuffInc.com, bringing you another video with SCG Worcester coming up this weekend, being Week 1 Standard. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it. As many of you know, I really enjoy Week 1 Standard, and not being able to do it's kind of sad, but Worcester's way out of the way. I'm going to play what I think is probably going to be the best deck, at least for Week 1 Standard, or at least one of the exceptional choices. I think this deck is really powerful. It has a lot of really good synergies, and playing an aggro deck is never really a bad thing, and this deck is really good at getting your opponent dead here. Now, it is kind of awkward. Sometimes we do have a little bit of the weaker side of elementals. You know, if we look at Healer of the Glade, for example, well, not great. It is going to help a lot, you know, to really recover. We do have to play 12 shock lands in order to make sure that we're hitting all the correct mana, and that comes at a cost, and also being able to play against mono red, which might be a popular deck or other aggro decks. Just being able to gain 3 life, have a nice 1/2 body that's really hard to attack through, and really blocks well is going to be pretty effective here. One of the big things here is Mask of Immolation that comes from X-File, MTG, Felix Slew. Mask of Immolation is a fantastic card. Not only does it create elementals, obviously there's a lot of great synergy there. It really lets you kind of leverage beating up small creatures, getting into combat more effectively, or killing planeswalkers, just kind of taking them off. If you have Chandra, Acolyte of Flame plus Mask of Immolation, for every 4 mana, you know, that's another 2 damage, which, you know, adds up pretty quickly, you know, just being able to shock your opponent every turn. And while it is kind of on the expensive side, sometimes you do what you got to do. One of the big things that I really like here is Risen Reef. If people kind of remember, Rogue Refiner actually got banned in Standard, just for, you know, just drawing cards and being synergistic and with the parasitic mechanic of energy. And in this case, Risen Reef is going to be a card that it just lets you draw a card pretty much every time. It either ramps you, which is absurd, or it helps you just draw a ton of cards. And if you ever get to put elementals into play with Risen Reef, you just get to keep accruing so much value. The dream here, you know, Risen Reef, you know, put a land into play Chandra, 0, put, you know, another land, draw another card, and it helps you really churn through your deck, which means that you're going to be able to grind. Omnath kind of lets you do the same thing. It rewards you for playing all these, you know, a bunch of lands in your deck. And once you start getting up to 8 lands, it helps you draw a lot of extra cards. But in the meantime, it helps you grow your team. We're going to play an Icon of Ancestry here because I'm kind of curious how this is going to play. It's almost like a mini, you know, kind of like a mini collected company. You know, obviously it's not that good, but just being able to kind of just draw extra cards, make sure that you have bigger creatures in play, and especially when we're playing Chandras and Mask of Immolations, you know, Scorch Splitters, all these really weak creatures, Icon of Ancestry is just going to be a fantastic card to help us kind of drag through. If we head over to the sideboard, we're going to see a lot of cards. Nothing really too new with the exception of Pulse of Murasa, Veil of Summer, and Aether Gust and Cerulean Drake. Cerulean Drake is going to be a fantastic card against mono red. The card's pretty much unbeatable for them. They can never really attack through it. It can block forever, and, you know, being a counterspell is never a terrible thing, but mostly that's just a card we're going to be leaving in play. Aether Gust is a fantastic card to be able to interact with permanents that we might not be able to deal with. Planeswalkers like Nissa are going to be kind of tough. Experimental Frenzy, Chandra. These are kind of cards that we're not necessarily going to want to have to interact with poorly, and Aether Gust gives us an option to just kind of have a tempo swing. Veil of Summer is a concession to the Esper decks, which I believe are still going to be powerful moving forward. So that's really where I am. Pulse of Murasa is also a fantastic card against just the mono red deck as well. Just being able to gain 6 life and rebuy a Risen Reef is going to be fantastic. But that's going to be it for, you know, the introduction, and I can't wait to really get in and start playing this deck a little more. Hello everyone, Rudy Briksza here, CoolStuffInc.com, back here for match number 1 of our Elementals League, and we're playing against MTGO Stalwart, Misplaced Ginger. So this will be an interesting one. Generally, he's going to have pretty good decks going on, so this should be at least a good match. This hand's kind of bad. We're just going to go ahead and mulligan it. This hand's much better. This hand pretty much does everything that I could ever want it to do, and we have a turn 1, 2, and 3 play. We have 7 cards because the London Mulligan is live. I'm going to go ahead and toss out one of these Runaway Steam-Kins. We're not going to need that. Misplaced Ginger, of course, extremely lucky being able to keep all 7. And now we'll get to play a slow game. Looks like might be playing an Esper strategy here. And the Scorch Spitter here, just going to go ahead and get in for 2. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a Hero Precinct 1 here. Well, that's pretty good for us. I'm going to go ahead and put this Chandra Acolyte of Flame into play. And we're going to just keep dealing a bunch of damage to our opponent. And the next turn we'll Creeping Trailblazer our opponent and really get in for a ton of damage. And hope the opponent doesn't have, you know, Kai's Wrath here. Teferi Time Raveler, that one's going to be pretty solid, but this Creeping Trailblazer is really going to go ahead and get some damage in. Of course, we're going to want to kill this Teferi here. We don't want to get... If our opponent has Kai's Wrath, we don't want them to Kai's Wrath on our turn. And I did not play the Runaway Steam-Kin because I am a little bit concerned about getting Kai's Wrath here. And I'd rather save Runaway Steam-Kin for the follow-up. Next turn we can pump our Creeping Trailblazer, and it looks like our opponent was unable to find it, so we're going to go ahead and head on over to sideboarding here. The only thing I'm really going to want are these Negates and this Veil of Summer. Nothing else is really going to be good, and we're just going to go ahead and toss out these Healer of the Glades because they don't really do anything for us, for being honest here. So I think this is really all we're going to want, and I think this is just going to have to be good enough here. We could possibly board in Shock. Actually, I think I will board in a Shock. I think I've convinced myself to do that. I'd rather have an answer for a hero, especially on the draw. I don't really think I'm going to want too much else. I think everything else is going to be pretty good. And one of the downsides of playing a synergistic deck is it's not really easy to sideboard out a lot because you start cutting into everything that you're doing. But hopefully this should be good enough. Alright, and this hand also looks pretty good, so no real reason to keep it. We're going to have a Shock for the Hero Precinct 1 here, you know, multiple Steam-Kin, so should be in a pretty good spot here. Scorch Splitter, we're just going to go ahead and jam that every turn, every time we have a chance. Tyrant Scorn, that one's pretty good. Let's go ahead, and this is one of the downsides of having a 12 Shock mana base, is sometimes you fall pretty far behind. In terms of the life total race. Thought Erasure here is going to pretty much shred our hand, since our hand is not panning out very well. But we can pretty much cast everything in our deck, and it looks like if our opponent's taking Shock here, it's pretty likely that they are going to have either a Hero Precinct 1 here or something similar. And Chandra here is a fantastic draw off the top here. Gives us access to Shock again if we really need it, but also the damage it'll let us output is pretty nice. Really, I think the card that we don't want to see here the most is Basilica Bellhaunt. Alright, Teferi Time Raveler here, pretty solid card for sure. I'm just going to go ahead and play both my Steam-Kins here. And then we'll go ahead, kill this Teferi, and start getting in for some more damage. Unfortunately, we do only have a bunch of lands, so I think I'm going to start holding some of the lands here, since they pair really well with Omnath. They're not really in a spot where we need a lot. Of lands to really operate, so it makes the most amount of sense to just play it as safe as possible. It looks like our opponent here is just kind of missing land drops. If we get Kai's Wrath here, we're in a lot of trouble, that's for sure. Hero Precinct 1's pretty good. And Tyrant Scorn's also great. And this is excellent. Omnath is, of course, really one of the best draws. That's really what I was looking for, really part of the reason that I was holding all these lands. So now we can go ahead, eat this Hero Precinct 1. No reason to pay 2 life, and I get to make my Scorch Spitter even bigger, which means that I get to attack for basically free here. Now we're really putting our opponent to the test. They did go down to 4, which is pretty interesting. Teferi doesn't really have a lot of good outs here, and it's kind of interesting that they went ahead and did it that way. I think I'm just going to go ahead and... Our opponent is at a pretty low life total. I think our opponent is just kind of dead on board here, right? I guess unless they have Disfigure. So I think the best line is to Sulfur Falls, put a counter on our Omnath, play Scorch Spitter, make our Runaway Steam-Kin a 4/4, and just attack our opponent. And that'll be it. Looks like our opponent did not have anything. So that is going to be a nice little win in our book. And, you know, part of the reason that this deck was a little bit good in this spot is because our opponent really just missed land drops and never really got anything together. So the fact that this deck is punishing is a good spot. Hello everyone, Rudy Briksza here, back with match number 2 for CoolStuffInc.com, playing some Elementals of the Temur variety. And, well, I do like a lot of this hand. Without a green source, this hand really doesn't do a lot, and if we never find one, we're 100% to lose. So I'm going to mulligan. London Mulligan here, really nice for finding a lot of stuff, and whew, this one is nice. The only card that I really can't cast here is Chandra at the moment, but... I think that's okay. We are certainly going to keep this hand, and I'm going to get rid of this Unclaimed Territory here. The reason I'm going to get rid of Unclaimed Territory is because it doesn't really cast a lot of our spells at the moment, unless I wanted to Scorch Spitter on 1, which I don't think I do. We do have 24 lands in the deck, so we're pretty likely to find more, and Steam-Kin's at a spot where... we get to go ahead and play it sometime soon and start powering out a lot. And having Steam-Kin into double Steam-Kin draw can really let us leverage all of the spells in our hand here. Opponent is on a double Guildgate strategy so far. Alright, well, Steam-Kin into Creeping Trailblazer is not bad here, and it's almost making me wish that I got rid of this Mask of Immolation instead. Teferi Time Raveler's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just take out this Teferi here, I think. Alright. Definitely regretting getting rid of that land at this moment. Elvish Rejuvenator. Powerful card. Good for ramping. And I think I'm starting to fall really far behind because I got rid of that land. But, you know, with 24 lands and being on the draw, I thought I was in a good spot. Looks like our opponent also might be struggling a little bit to find some lands as well, but they're pretty far ahead, so that between Elvish Rejuvenator, they're definitely getting way far ahead. That's pretty okay. I think I'm just going to go ahead and put all my Steam-Kins really into play so I can really start getting that engine going. Now we're at a spot where I'm really going to be able to start putting a lot of power into play and a lot of pressure. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a planar cleansing here. That would be pretty devastating. Plaza of Harmony. It looks like our opponent's playing kind of a Bant Gate strategy. That's really what it looks like. I wonder if they have Nexus in their deck. Time Wipe. Oh, that was a really good one. That was definitely a good one. So I'm just going to go ahead and jam Chandra here. Chandra can really help apply the pressure, especially with Creeping Trailblazer and Mask of Immolation. And our opponent has Elvish Rejuvenator again. Field of Dead is definitely a good one. Ooh, and Elite Guard Mage. I kind of like what our opponent's doing here. Kind of just have like a pure value deck, and whew. And double Trailblazer here means that our creatures are actually just going to be 3/1s here, which means that our opponent might have to start blocking sometime soon. I'm okay letting the first Chandra die. We do have another one here. Our Circuitous Root's pretty bad for me. If our opponent plays another Circuitous Root type card, I think I might just be dead here. Ah, Scape Shift. That is going to be more than good enough here. Alright. That was pretty unfortunate, but we're going to want these negates. I think we might want these Aether Gust. I'm not really too sold on that one. Doesn't really do a lot here, but I think negate's going to be just good enough, and I don't really think we want the healer or the glades. Everything else, pretty good though. Looks like we're going to have to get our opponents dead before they really get their Scape Shift going. Yes, I would love to play first. Yes, I would love to mulligan this hand that doesn't do anything. This one's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. We can cast our spells. I have an Icon of the Ancestry. And I'll take that. Go ahead and get rid of one of these Stomping Grounds, I think. Actually, let me take a look at the deck to see if we need any double green. And we kind of do for Living Twister a little bit. So actually, I think I am going to get rid of this mountain instead. I think I'm okay getting rid of that. Right. Looks like our opponent is joining us in our mulligan. We are going to keep. I'm going to get rid of this mountain. Now we'll ship it back to our opponent, see if they... This London mulligan is kind of weird, but kind of cool. I have really enjoyed it. I'm pretty happy that I'm going to get to play with it a lot, especially moving forward. I think I am going to take a look to see if there's more 1-drops that I could play. Healer Glade is definitely excellent, but this deck doesn't really do a lot of things on the cheap. So I think I might want to try to see if there's another 1-mana elemental that I could make use out of. Not that Healer is bad, but I definitely want more cheap things to do. Well, looks like, unfortunately, our opponent mulliganed to 5. Unfortunate for them, good for us. Well, Living Twister is excellent, and that was one of the reasons that I was considering getting rid of the mountain. So I feel pretty rewarded for it so far. And Living Twister plus Omnath is a really nice combo, just being able to bounce back your lands and keep making large creatures. I'm going to slam this Risen Reef next turn. It's going to help us start gaining a ton of value. Go ahead and get in for 1 here. Eventually. Opponent might be suffering from some bad internet connection, forcing them to go a lot slower, or maybe they're hoping that I'll accidentally F6 through my turn, but I've been playing Moto for long enough that that's just not a thing. Just not a thing. Our opponent is getting far ahead. Let's see if we will join them. Okay. Well, getting Chandra is really good, because that means next turn, as long as this Risen Reef is still going to be in play, I'm going to get a lot of lot of benefit with it. Alright, unfortunately my opponent's Elvish Rejuvenator missed. That's good for me. Chandra here, certainly going to draw a ton of cards. Put 2 Elementals into play, trigger Risen Reef twice, put Omnath and Chandra into my hand. It's unfortunate that I haven't found a land yet, but as long as this Risen Reef doesn't die, I'll be in a good spot. Prison Realm. Hopefully my opponent is going after my Chandra instead of my Risen Reef. Oh, they are. That's fortunate. Since we drew another Chandra, I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and just keep trying to draw a bunch of cards. I think that's just in my best interest here. Just put that into play. Yeah, and I think from here, unless our opponent has another way to get rid of this, we will be drawing a ton of cards here. We would have put a Breeding Pool into play, Sulfur Falls, played Scorch Spitter, activated Risen Reef again, and gotten in for 3 damage, and would have just really pulled extremely far ahead there. So that was pretty nice. Let's go ahead and rebuy on that. I don't know if we want anything else. Maybe we want a Crushing Canopy here. Opponent showing us they have Prison Realm. Maybe they have Ixalan's Binding. So it seems pretty free to go ahead and just knock that in there. I am vaguely interested with this kind of deck. Also look into the Cavaliers. I believe all of the Cavaliers are Elementals. I'm just going to double check right now. Don't mind me. Yeah, all of them are Elementals. Out of all the Cavaliers, I think the only ones that are really playable are Thorns and Gales in this deck. And I'm not sure if I'm really interested in either of those cards, although I'm vaguely interested in Cavalier of Thorns. Just a 5/6 with reach is obviously great. Being able to ramp yourself is great, and being able to rebuy something is great, but I don't really think we can make too much use out of it. Cavalier Gales, on the other hand, is a lot harder to cast. But we are basically a base red deck in a lot of ways, and so trying to cast Cavalier is kind of not that great, but maybe it's worth it to just try. Yeah, I think this one's pretty good. We are going to be on the draw. And while having a bunch of Omnaths is kind of medium, might be pretty good for cleaning up Planeswalkers, cleaning up small creatures, and as long as I draw a land and I get to play this Risen Reef on turn 3, we're going to be in a good spot. And I did draw a land immediately, so that is really nice. And hopefully Risen Reef can draw us another one, and hopefully I draw a 2-drop next turn. Then we'll be in a good spot. Risen Reef plus Omnath is going to be pretty nice here. Alright, we drew our 4th land, which means I now want my Risen Reef to, still put in a card. Still putting in a land is good because it means I can play Omnath and then put a counter on one of my creatures. But getting in for 2 damage here is kind of nice, but my opponent is ramping. They're kind of doing everything that they want to do. This is going to be maybe a tough one. Elite Guard Mage, kind of nice. Kind of nice here. Drawing another land is not ideal. Okay, we are very Omnath flooded. As long as none of our creatures die this turn or get bounced or anything, this Omnath is, at least going to take out this Elite Guard Mage and help us start getting through. Being able to pile on the Omnaths is going to be nice. It looks like our opponent here is getting to a spot where they might scape shift us next turn, and I don't really have anything to say or anything to do about it, so we are just going to kind of have to let it happen. Definitely want the Sulfur Falls into play. Definitely want to make my Risen Reef a tiny bit bigger. Yeah, again, if my opponent scape shifts here, they're going to create a lot of zombies. That is going to be tough for me to be able to beat. Especially without a 6-mana Chandra in my deck. Alright, looks like my opponent is just setting up for next turn still. So maybe I'll get lucky and I'll draw a Negate. Do have a lot of, a lot of draws towards it. Especially with Creeping Trailblazer and Risen Reef. Okay, that didn't really do anything for me. I think at this rate, I think I'm just going to jam Icon here. Try to make all my creatures as big as possible. Elemental. You don't need to pay 2 life. But I'm just going to go ahead and put another counter on something here. And this is a decent bit of damage right here. And it does let us Omnath our opponent for a pretty lethal amount here, assuming I don't get fogged. Aether Gust. I think I'm going to put Risen Reef on the top, because I think I'm okay redrawing it here. And putting our opponent to 5 is kind of nice. It looks like our opponent didn't find anything here. They were really looking for Scapeshift. And even if they found Scapeshift and made a bunch of zombies, I was just going to, Runaway Steam-Kin, Omnath our opponent for 4, and, then Omnath our opponent again the next turn. But, so, the deck's been pretty good so far. It's, again, taking advantage of our opponent slowing down. Our opponent's not really doing anything. And, once we start getting Creeping Trailblazer and Omnath going, it's a lot of damage output, and Risen Reef obviously fantastic for helping us draw a lot of cards. But I'll be back for a moment in the next match. Hello everyone, Rudy Briksza here, back from match number 3. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this hand. This hand's fantastic. I get to lead off on a Scorch Spitter, and I get to go double Trailblazer, which is really nice. And if I draw another green source, I can also, get up with the Healer of the Glade as well. But either way, attacking for 3 this turn is kind of nice. And I just have to hope that I don't get bodied here. Ooh, Steam Vent's is nice. Thought Erasure. I assume my opponent's going to take the Creeping Trailblazer. And I'm going to hope that I don't get Cry of the Carnarium. That's what I'm hoping for. That would be awful. I'd be so sad. Oh. Well, drew Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. So I'm going to go ahead and 8 my opponent here. Which is also a good follow-up to Cry of the Carnarium as well. Getting in for, I guess I'm going to 9 my opponent. Ah, my opponent is just dead. Just dead to Chandra. Oh, this deck is so much fun. But our opponent's playing Grixis here. So I think we're going to want the Negates. We're going to want the Fries. And I'm not going to want the Healer of the Glades. Those are not really going to do it for me. But Fry is going to be good against all the Nicol Bolas. Negate's going to be good against all their other nonsense. I think I also want this Veil of the Summer here. And I don't think we want a Runaway. I think we don't want a Mask of Immolation. I think that's not really going to do it. I'm pretty happy with how this looks off. I'm going to leave an Icon of Ancestry just because it can make our creatures a tiny bit bigger, which can help get Creeping Trailblazer out of Cry of Carnarium range, which I think is going to be important. And also it'll help us grind a little bit. Even though we're less likely to hit, it's still going to be fine. This hand is, again, excellent, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it. All the synergies. Looks like our opponent is mulliganing, which is definitely a lot harder to tell now what our opponent is doing. We're going to get to go Steam-Kin into Chandra, into Risen Reef, into, well, it depends on what our opponent thought erasures here. But Risen Reef is going to be fantastic, and so is Chandra either way, so I think I'm in a pretty good spot. We'll just see what our opponent wants to take here, and then we can make our decision based on that. Opponent is going to take our Chandra. It's not very nice. Very luckily we drew a land. Just kidding, it wasn't very lucky. This is mostly an okay spot. I do get to Risen Reef here, and if I do hit a land here. This Omnath is really going to do a lot of work. Okay, well, it looks like we drew another Omnath at least, so we can start getting that going. Opponent's going to cast down our Risen Reef. That wasn't very nice, taking away all our ability to draw a lot of cards. Kefnet, that's pretty good. Unfortunately, this Risen Reef going away is making me very sad. A lot of different options here. I think I'm just going to play Omnath. Just going to go ahead and make our Steam-Kin a tiny bit bigger. I'm going to deal 2 damage to our opponent. And if our opponent fails here to really draw anything that great, we're going to be able to attack into Kefnet pretty effectively. Looks like our opponent did not draw a spell here. That is pretty good. We want to try and I hope our opponent draws a bunch of non-spells here, so they don't get anything out of Kefnet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play Breeding Pool untapped here. I'm going to put a counter on my Omnath. Go ahead and make my Runaway Steam-Kin bigger. Oh no, I messed up my tapping. Oh, my tapping was so bad. I messed up everything. Oh no. Oh no. This is so sad. I actually should have attacked with Omnath there. Yeah, I messed up really bad that turn. I should have a Living Twister in play as well. Or a Chandra that I could have made 5. Oh, this is so dangerous now. Sarkhan's pretty good too. Sarkhan's pretty good against Chandra. I definitely messed this up. So that is all on me. I'm quite the fool. Please don't copy me. I'm going to play another Omnath here. I'm going to go ahead and kill this Sarkhan. No real reason to let it do too much. I'm just going to go ahead and put a counter on my Runaway Steam-Kin here. Make it a 6/5, which means that if my opponent wants to double block here, I can eat their Kefnet. That's perfectly fine with me. I don't mind putting their Kefnet back because their Kefnet's the only real way that they're going to get back in this game. Nicol Bowl is here, pretty solid, to say the least. I'm not really sure exactly what I want to discard here, but if I have to take a guess, it's probably going to be the Chandra. Chandra's pretty easy to attack here. I don't really have a lot of tools to move with it, and Living Twister plus Omnath is going to make all my creatures way too big. So I think that's where I'm leaning. Let's go ahead and I think I'm just going to pump my Omnath here. Just attack with my Creeping Trailblazer this turn. Because my opponent wants to block with Nicol Bolas, I can pump Creeping Trailblazer to 5/5. And if they don't want to block, then I can start returning lands with Living Twister. Alright. I think my opponent either might not have realized what was going to happen there, or maybe they had Shivan Fire, but I think I just have to go for it anyway. No, I do not know if my opponent can really attack anymore. It looks like they're going to. I don't think my opponent can attack here. I think that is not good for them. I'm going to go ahead and return this Rootbound Crag. And I'm going to replay this Rootbound Crag, and I'm going to make my Omnath bigger. I'm just going to go ahead and attack with everything. Even if my opponent wants to block Living Twister here, I can discard the Stomping Ground pretty easily to be able to get rid of it. Let's go ahead and pump my Trailblazer here. Let's discard to kill this thing. Now my opponent's in a pretty bad spot. I know they're drawing Kefnet this turn, I believe. And I mean, Ritualist Soot might be okay, but Omnath would still kill, and I think that's going to do it. Whoa, this deck is so much fun. I'll be back with match number 4 in a moment. Hey everybody, Rudy Briksza here, CoolStuffInc.com. Back here with match number 4 of our Elemental Temur League, and we're on the draw. A lot of reasonably good draws here. Ooh, looks like our opponent might be playing a mono-red strategy here. I think I'm just going to go ahead and play it safe, play Steam Vents tapped here. This kind of opens up the rest of my hand. It lets me play Runaway Steam-Kin into Scorch Spitter, assuming our opponent doesn't murder it. Thorn Lieutenant, pretty powerful Magic the Gathering card. Omnath is very nice. And then next turn I can play a Steam Vents tapped and a Scorch Splitter, depending on what my opponent does or what I draw here. I have a lot of different options. Really, I'm hoping that I can draw Risen Reef here. Domri's Ambush, pretty good. Pretty good here, for sure. Want to draw Risen Reef, though. Okay, I will take a Runaway Steam-Kin. Though, because that means Omnath is going to get pretty big and deal a bunch of damage. In the meantime, I'm going to take a lot of damage from this Thorn Lieutenant. But it does keep making land drops here. Rekindling Phoenix is actually really good. But Omnath is actually going to be great at taking care of it here. Acolyte of Flame is nice, but I don't think that's what I want to do just yet. I think I want to wait a turn. Elemental, green, red, blue. Make that Steam-Kin a tiny bit bigger. Let's go ahead and take out this Rekindling Phoenix for a turn. This will help me attack pretty effectively. I think I'm going to have to end up blocking with this Scorch Splitter. Make sure that I don't die. So this is starting to be a lot of damage here, and especially if my opponent has the dragon. Okay, another Rekindling Phoenix. This is where having Fry in my sideboard and not Lava Coil is going to be pretty bad. If my opponent's just attacking for 3 here, I think I'm just going to go ahead and let that go. Okay, I'm going to play a Stomping Ground tapped. I'm going to go ahead and put a counter on my Omnath. Go ahead and make my Runaway Steam-Kin a tiny bit bigger. I don't think making a bunch of idiots here is going to be good, so I think this turn I'm just going to go ahead and wait a moment. Just make it a 5/5, so this will force my opponent, if they want to attack, to use both of their Rekindling Phoenixes. And then next turn I'll have access to another land. Grove Chamber Guardian's pretty good. I'll clear up the Legion War Boss. Okay. Looks like our opponent is going to get really aggressive here. Our opponent can't really attack with Thorn Lieutenant, so I think they're just going to attack with their Kindling Phoenixes here. Definitely starting to be in a bit of trouble, that's for sure. Yeah, our opponent has figured out to just attack us. That is unfortunate. I think we might just lose to these Rekindling Phoenixes, if we're being honest. And I don't really think I have a way out here, unfortunately. It just took a little bit too much damage. Healer of the Glade might have helped a tiny bit, but not too much here. So I'm going to want this Crushing Canopy for sure. And I think I want these Aether Gusts for sure. Don't really know if I want these Pulse of Murasas. But this Mask of Immolation is not really going to do a lot for me. I think Runaway Steam-Kin is going to be pretty medium. I think we can cut a Healer of the Glade. I think this is really where I want to be. Green-red aggro are pretty good. Also making me regret these fries here over Lava Coil. So maybe in the future I might want to do a split. Lava Coil is still going to be an exceptional card. And if Rekindling Phoenix is the kind of card that this deck is going to struggle with, then I'm definitely going to want to make sure that I'm at least keeping that in mind. I think this hand's pretty okay. We certainly need to draw a land here to really get going. But we have a lot of good tools. If we're really lucky, our opponent will have a Llanowar Elves here. They'll just die. Alright. Next turn, we definitely need to draw a land, because if I do not draw a land, I'm going to fall way too far behind. Mask of Immolation definitely pulling its weight, but hopefully I draw a land this turn, and I can... Well, I need to draw a red land specifically. Ooh, maybe this hand is a little bit worse than I originally anticipated. And now I'm definitely in a lot of trouble. Now I'm in a lot of trouble. And this might spell doom for me. And our opponent not really doing too much over on their side, so if I draw a land, I'd actually be in a really good spot. Red land specifically. Okay, that is really unfortunate. And now I'm definitely in a lot of trouble. Just going to go ahead and try and save myself a little bit. And hopefully I draw a land here so I can do something. All right, excellent. I'm just going to go ahead and Risen Reef here. I'm okay taking another 4 damage, just because I'm going to draw a lot of cards over the next few turns, as long as this Risen Reef survives, and putting Living Twister into play next turn is going to be good at blocking. Unfortunate. Alright, let's start putting this Living Twister into play. Drawing Healer is nice. Ooh, my opponent is now starting to draw out of their flood. We'll see who gets out of this first. Definitely going to block here. If my opponent has something, they have something. I have to try and conserve my life total now. Yep. Just put another Living Twister into play. Hope that's going to be good enough again. And then next turn I can start putting Healer of the Glade and Scorch Spitter into play. That'll make my life a little bit easier. Gruul Spellbreaker. That was unfortunate. Looks like my opponent is getting real feisty here. Go ahead and go up to 5 here. Scorch Spitter into play. Let's equip this Mask of Immolation to it. Alright. And now I'm no longer dead on board, which is kind of nice. I really need to get this Omnath into play so I can kill this Gruul Spellbreaker. So really I just need to let block with just my Living Twister and maybe Scorch Splitter here. My opponent has another Gruul Spellbreaker. That'd be pretty bad for me. Domri's Ambush is pretty bad for me as well. All right. We're definitely in not a good spot, that's for sure here. So I think I could, I have a lot of different options here. My opponent could shock me and kill me. They could play another Spellbreaker and kill me. So I think I'm just gonna try and play it safe, and I mean, not very safe, but try and at least set myself up for the next few turns. Drawing an Omnath here is pretty bad. Really wanted to try and put a land into play. It's really unfortunate. We still have not found a land to put into play. Really needed to find a bunch of lands there off the Risen Reef and the Scorch Spitter so I could afford to do everything. And Cruel Spellbreaker there is going to do it. It's really unfortunate, but I don't really think there's too much for me to do here. I could have played Omnath, killed a Thorn Lieutenant, given them a 1/1. And then they would have had a 4/4 that I could have blocked, a 3/3 that I would have traded with Omnath, and then Scorch Spitter could have blocked the Thorn Lieutenant, killed the 1/1. I guess that would have been fine, but overall, not really happy with. I really needed to draw lands there, like really badly. It was quite unfortunate, but I'll be back for a little bit for match number 5. Hello, everyone. Rudy Briksza here, CoolStuffInc.com. I am quite the fool. I did not click the record button before I mulliganed an unkeepable hand of 6 lands and Immolation. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this hand, though. We are on the draw. We do have quite a few green sources in the deck, so hopefully we draw them. Can really get going. I'm just going to go ahead and not play Scorch Spitter on turn 1 because I want to try and turn on this Steam-Kin as fast as possible. Looks like our opponent's playing a Naya strategy. I'm really excited to see what it is they're doing. If they're playing like a creature-heavy strategy or tokens-heavy strategy. A lot of really good cards. Opponent could even be playing like Hero Precinct 1 here. Danto Vanguard. Okay. That one is definitely good. Drawing a Scorch Spitter here, although pretty atrocious since we need lands really badly, is going to be pretty good for helping turn on this Steam-Kin a little bit quicker. If I ever get to put this Living Twister into play, this Danto Vanguard is going to look quite foolish. Our opponent's playing a Feather strategy. Well, this one is going to be kind of tough, but once we get to post board and I get Shocks and Fries, I'm going to be in a pretty good spot. A lot of different things here. I think I'm just going to want to put a Living Twister into play, as painful as this is. Obviously, we have an extremely painful mana base. But next turn, I'm going to be able to double Scorch Spitter into Chandra, Acolyte of Flame, which is going to be kind of nice. And then could even play Creeping Trailblazer the turn after and be in a pretty good spot. Well, we are certainly falling behind, though, at the moment. And can definitely die really quickly. Sacred Foundry tapped is probably a good sign. Another Danto Vanguard's okay here. I think my opponent's just going to attack with Feather, which is fine. Not really too much that can be done about that one. Risen Reef is awesome, but I think I'm starting to fall too far behind, but maybe I'm not. Maybe it's okay to play Risen Reef here. Helps me start really getting far ahead. I think I just kind of have to start Scorch Spittering here. And just get this Chandra into play, try and make a wide board as possible. I think really my only way to beat this Feather is to deal 20 damage over the next 3 turns, and it really doesn't happen the other way. I think I am going to attack with Runaway Steam-Kin here too. If my opponent wants to double block and pay a bunch of life, I think I'm okay with that. Don't really think that's going to be too harsh. And again here, I'm just kind of trying to play it safe as possible. But also, I really need to get my opponent dead. And I need to wait till next turn. Hopefully this Creeping Trailblazer, will actually help me out put a ton of damage here. And it looks like this Risen Reef might not even come into play. And again, if my opponent wants to, like double block here and pay 4 to 8 life, I'm perfectly okay with that because, this Chandra is pretty unlikely to die, I believe. That's okay. All right, so my opponent's just going to let both of these Adana Vanguards die. That's really good for me, actually. Because next turn I'm looking at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage. So really I just have to kind of not die over these next couple of turns. And it doesn't look like our opponent has a lot of things. Maybe they just have God's Willing here. They're just kind of playing it safe. I don't really have any options, so just going to sit here and whatever happens, happens. Looks like our opponent might be a little flooded. They might just have land and another feather in play, or another feather in their hand. 10th District Legionnaire. That's okay with me. Dreadhorde Arcanist. Okay, so really our opponent is just kind of on the not really doing too much here. Let's go ahead and create a bunch of 1/1s, or 2/1s. And I'm just going to attack with the 2/1s here. My opponent wants to trade off a 10th District Legionnaire, that's fine. They're definitely going to block with an Arcanist, though. Alright, now we're at a spot where things are starting to get a little tense, a little tight. We have to kind of get a little bit lucky. Hope our opponent doesn't really draw too much. Legion's Landing here is pretty solid, though. My opponent attacks with everything, though. I think that's good for me. So I'm going to get to kill some stuff. All right. So it looks like we are going to get to kill. It looks like my opponent was just sitting on a bunch of creatures here. Now we'll see exactly how our opponent wants to attack here, but we are probably going to be eating a bunch of their creatures. Like our opponent trying to flip Legion's Landing here. It seems pretty smart. And I'm going to have to trade off one of the Scorch Spitters here. Alright, Runaway Steam-Kin isn't really doing anything, which is kind of unfortunate. So I'm just going to Risen Reef here, try and draw, because we really need to try and draw to an Omnath here. Okay, excellent. We did draw to an Omnath, so that's good. And now we have to hope that my opponent is not going to draw too much here. We drew another Omnath, that's kind of nice. If I get a land here, I really just want to put a bunch of lands into play, I think, at this point, so I can cast everything. Alright. I think, alright, we just want to attack with these. No real reason to attack with anything else. We do lose to any pump spell here. I do lose to a 10th District Legionnaire off the top, so it only makes sense for me to play as safe as possible this turn, especially since next turn Omnath can kill Feather, and that'll put me in a really good spot. I'm perfectly fine with this Vampire trading. Yeah, this is just all good for me. Next turn I can kill Feather, and then I can start leveraging my Omnaths to try and pick off the Dreadhorde Arcanist too. But just really want to play as safe as humanly possible here and hope my opponent doesn't draw a Defiant Strike. They draw a Defiant Strike, I die. They draw any pump spell, I die. You know, so that's just the way it is. That's just what's going to happen. There's not really too much I can do about it. But now that I have Omnath, as long as my opponent doesn't draw God's Willing or Pump Spell, then I will win the game, most likely. Well, maybe not. But lots of options, lots of things for me to do here. My opponent drew Pump Spell, we'd die. But it looks like they did. Looks like they drew Defiant Strike here. They might just have God's Willing here. Legion's Landing. That's really good for me. Whew, I was very worried for a moment. I do agree with my opponent just attacking me. It gives them a ton of outs. Can't really block, so let's go ahead and get this Omnath into play. It's a lot of elementals. It's 4 elementals. So we're going to get to kill Feather here. And then Risen Reef plus Chandra is going to help us draw a ton of cards. And then hopefully we get a little lucky. We've been getting a little lucky so far. Opponent's just drawn a ton of creatures. Well, that was actually an excellent draw, because that means we're pretty unlikely to die now. Heal the Glades. Excellent magic card, especially against all these aggro decks. Putting Unclaimed Territory into play is awesome, because that means now I get to start pumping up all my creatures. Let's create 2 1/1s. I'm going to go ahead and put this into play. We're definitely not going to pay 2 life, but I'm going to start making all my smaller creatures bigger. Oof. Now we're starting to to get in a lot. Now I think I'm going to be at a spot where I can start attacking. Let's attack with these. Let's attack with the Scorch Spitter, and let's attack with Risen Reef. I think this gives me 4 creatures to block, and I need at least 4 creatures so I don't randomly die to anything. And then next turn, I believe this Risen Reef plus Steam-Kin plus Omnath is going to kill my opponent. I think I'll just be able to fireball my opponent out. So I can play Steam-Kin, play Risen Reef, and then play Omnath plus Chandra, and that should deal all the lethal damage to my opponents here. Well, I guess Omnath on its own is going to be good enough here. But I guess I was thinking that my opponent was going to have a way higher life total. Whew, that was a tough one to come back from. Alright, so we're going to want all these shocks. We're going to want all these fries. Don't know if I want anything. Maybe I want Pulse of Murasa. Pulse of Murasa's just gaining a ton of life is going to be really good. Plus my opponent's probably going to have a lot of removal. But I'm not really too thrilled with that. So I think we're just going to cut one of these Chandras, cut a Mask of Immolation, cut some of these Steam-Kins, because they're not really going to be doing a lot of work post-board. I think I want everything else, though. I actually don't think I want Icon of Ancestry here. I think I'd rather have another Mask. Well, this hand is pretty bad. Pretty bad to say the least. So that's okay. Oh no! Alright, this hand's good. I don't think I want Living Twister. I think Scorch Spitter is going to be the worst. I think the rest of this is going to be okay. Risen Reef can help get us back into the game pretty easily. I think I'm going to hold off on playing Healer of the Glade for a little bit, especially because it's going to pair so well with Risen Reef. I think I just want to try and play it safe as possible and try and set myself up for Risen Reef into Healer of the Glade to start trying to grab all the synergies that I possibly can. Opponent here with the Clifftop Retreat. Not even the Temple of Clifftop Retreat. Would have been much better. Hopefully this is a 10th District Legionnaire. More than anything else. Danto Vanguard, pretty bad for me right now. Ah, yes. Perfect. Now I can kill this for free. Again, really just kind of how to play it as safe as possible for a little bit, especially on a mulligan to 5. Drawing another Risen Reef is awesome, because if I get to go Risen Reef into Risen Reef, that is a lot of triggers. That's a lot of cards that I get to draw. So, hopefully my Risen Reef gets to live, and it puts a green source into play, because then I can go Risen Reef, double trigger, Healer of the Glade, double trigger again, and that should undo this mulligan, which is going to be pretty nice. I love getting F6 value. It is definitely my favorite. Legion's Landing. That one is a good one. Not really going to do too much here, fortunately. All right. And now, we did draw another green source, so even if this Risen Reef dies, we get to go Risen Reef into Healer of the Glade next turn, which is kind of nice. Ooh. Double Healer of the Glade. Healer of the Glade, very good at blocking miserable vampire tokens, and also good for gaining a ton of life. And in this matchup where our opponent is probably going to potentially struggle to get over the finish line, I'm going to be pretty happy to have a bunch of Healer of the Glades. Yeah, looks like our opponent is just missing a ton of land drops here. Looks like they found one. I'm definitely not blocking. I'm going to gain way too much value. There's no reason for me to block. Another Healer of the Glades. Okay, well, I'll take it. Let's go ahead and put this mountain into play, put this Unclaimed Territory into play. And now we're starting to undo our mulligan, for sure. Put this Rootbound Crag into play. This Breeding Pool into play. Alright, well, that was kind of interesting. You know, put 4 lands into play, ramped ourselves pretty much a lot. Now we have 8 lands, so if I draw Omnath, Omnath will actually start drawing cards too. Again, I really don't want to block with this Risen Reef. I'll block with the Healer of the Glade, because that's whatever, but I'm definitely not blocking with the Risen Reef, because that is our way to be able to bury our opponent here, and our opponent has yet to find an answer, so I want to play as safe as humanly possible. And getting in for 1 here is fine. It doesn't really matter too much, but getting to go double Healer of the Glade should hopefully draw something next turn. This is why Risen Reef is so good. Anytime your opponent skips a beat, you just draw so many cards and bury them. Now, we were on a mulligan to 7, and now on turn 4 we have 8 lands in play. Which is pretty insane. And we get to potentially draw, you know, at least 2 cards next turn if something bad happens to a Risen Reef, and otherwise we get to draw 4 cards. And if we get to draw our Omnath or Chandra here, we're going to go wild and crazy. All right. Now we'll see what our opponent can do here. I fully expect our opponent to play like a Feather or something here. Ooh, taking 2. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have, like, anything too crazy here. Feather, okay. Looks like our opponent is trying to just get rid of our Risen Reef, which is, you know, one of the worst case scenarios that we thought we were going to have to deal with. Was one of our Risen Reefs dying. It was quite unfortunate. So now we only get to draw 2 cards this turn instead of 4. But we're going to gain 6 life. Draw some more cards. Alright, well, we've found only lands so far, which is very unfortunate, because we really want to find Omnath here. Well, Chandra is okay, and we're definitely going to go ahead and play it here, and I'm definitely going to 0. Definitely want to try and draw some cards here, and ooh, that's kind of unfortunate. That's a lot of lands. You know, we've been through 20 cards, the top 20 cards of our library, and we have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lands. We do only have 24 lands in the deck, so we've been through half our lands already, which is kind of unfortunate here. And I think now my Risen Reef is going to die, which is really unfortunate for me. Because my Risen Reef dying here means that I'll no longer be able to draw a bunch of cards every turn. But we've drawn so many cards at this point, I have to imagine that we should be in an okay spot. What is this? Solar Blaze. Well, that's really bad for me. Whew! That was terrible. Now I'm in a lot of trouble. Yeah. Drawing a land here is pretty bad. I might lose this game because we've only really found lands. Even though we definitely undid our mulligan, we flooded out so heinously. But, yeah, it's pretty bad. At this point, only a quarter of our deck is lands. And everything else is really good. So we're going to lose Chandra here. I really hope that I can draw an Omnath here. Because even though Omnath is not going to be great, actually Risen Reef and Omnath would probably be the best thing, if we're being honest. Domri's Ambush. Ooh, Domri's Ambush is pretty nice, actually. Being able to kill Planeswalkers. I did not realize that. Yeah, and I think that's just going to do it for us. Opponent's going to get really far. Yeah, we found way too many lands there. Way too many lands. So hopefully find a little less lands. I think I'm going to board in this Crushing Canopy now, because I really just want to be able to kill everything. And hopefully this time we will be able to do something. But okay, this hand is kind of medium, but I am definitely going to keep it because, you know, Risen Reef is excellent. We have Shock and Fry, so we have multiple ways to interact with our opponent early. And as long as we draw lands, Risen Reef is going to start getting places. Unfortunately, you know, we're not drawing any of our 12 shock lands, you know, so don't really get to go wild and crazy, but hopefully I find a land the next 2 turns. If I'm able to ever, like, put a Risen Reef into play and then, you know, follow it up with some 1-drops, I'll be able to easily bury my opponent, assuming that I don't, of course, draw more than half my lands. Alright, well, we did draw a 3rd land, and even though it means we're not going to make another play until turn 4, most likely. We're still in an okay spot. Scorch Spitter is going to be really good at getting in a ton of damage here. Dante Vanguard is going to be whatever, and we can beat 10th District Legionnaire pretty easily. Breeding Pool is nice, but I think I need to shock this turn. Just to play it safe. The worst thing that happens is my opponent plays Feather. We beat Feather pretty easily because we have Fry. Hopefully our opponent doesn't play Dreadhorde Arcanist. That one I can't really beat. Feather's pretty easy for us to beat here. I considered taking 2 off the breeding pool, but I thought that might make it a little too obvious what we were doing. Okay. Just going to go ahead and get these Scorch Spitters into play. Just want to try and start getting a little aggressive. And the next turn we have Risen Reef plus Healer of the Glade. And I don't want to try and bank on getting lucky or unlucky in some cases and drawing a land to be able to go Risen Reef into a double. I think I'm just going to go play it safe here. Dreadhorde Arcanist, pretty good. And although I did find a land, I'd still rather, play safe rather than sorry. And hopefully Risen Reef draws us into an Omnath here. That's really what we want. We have enough lands. I no longer need lands. I'm going to keep this Stomping Ground in my hand for a moment, just in case. Because again, if we find an Omnath, jeez. Risen Reef drawing us a lot of cards here. But, not really finding us the spells that we need to be able to participate in this game. I don't really want to sacrifice a Scorch Splitter for 1 damage, so I think I'm just going to wait a turn. Although I guess maybe I should have attacked because our opponent did show a Solar Blaze. Dharma's Ambush really good, for sure. Yeah, pretty insane here. I'm definitely going to fall absurdly far behind, I think, at this point. Yeah, Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, put its counter on this one, fights a Scorch Splitter or something, and I fall insanely far behind, which is quite unfortunate. Okay, well, we drew another Risen Reef, which is kind of nice, and hopefully this finds us an Omnath. It's really what we just want to draw here is Omnath, but Chandra here is okay. Yeah, I think I just want to draw 2 cards here. Hopefully it's not another 2 lands. Okay, well, having a Chandra there is pretty good. And I think at this rate, I think I just want to attack with everybody because I need to start getting my opponent dead. I'm going to hold the Stomping Ground in my hand in case I do draw Omnath. Drawing Omnath here would be excellent, since it would let me kill an Arcanist, plus the 8th land would draw me a card, put a big counter on something. I assume my Risen Reef is definitely going to die this turn. And then my Chandra will also die in turn. Which is okay, because we have another Chandra. Again, really just looking for pretty much Omnath always. My opponent, it looks like my opponent might have a second Dharma's Ambush. It's pretty bad for me. Oh, Gruul Spellbreaker. Well, that one's okay. That one's fine. Again, really just want to draw Omnath here. Omnath plus Chandra is going to be very nice. Will help kill this Dreadhorde Arcanist. It's going to be 4. Oh, my opponent has Reckless Rage as well. That is unfortunate for me. Hopefully we draw it. Hopefully I draw it. It would be nice. It would be very nice to draw Omnath here. Omnath can help take out a Dreadhorde Arcanist and put me in a really good spot. Even though my opponent is going to clean up quite a bit of my board here. They are at 10 life. Omnath will kill a creature, become big. Become big real quick. Oh, wow. Looks like my opponent's just going after everything here. Oh, that's really unfortunate. Yeah, that's pretty unfortunate here. We desperately needed to find a land. I was unable to find one here. I don't think playing Chandra really does anything for me. I don't think the extra 2 damage to bring my opponent down to 6 is really where I want to be. I want to try and save Chandra so I can at least try and leverage it with an Omnath. Let's try and kill something. But certainly getting worse and worse as time goes on. Flooded out pretty badly the last couple of games. Got really lucky in the first game, then these last 2 games have been nothing short of a sad brick. Drawn so many extra cards too with all the Risen Reefs, and it just wasn't enough. And another Domri's Ambush here. Obviously pretty egregiously bad for me. Comically bad. And Runaway Steam-Kin's not going to do it here, so it looks like we are dead. That was really unfortunate. Again, really just needed to draw like some impactful spells. We only saw some Omnaths in the first game, saw 0 in game 2 and 3, went through 20 plus cards of our library both times and didn't see any. I think moving forward, I think something like Lava Coil I would want in my deck just to kill random BS, like, you know, Dreadhorde Arcanist or whatever. Definitely a card that I might want. Rekindling Phoenix as well, I would want to kill. Otherwise, I was pretty happy with how all played out. We didn't really get to use Icon of Ancestry, so we have no idea how good it actually is, but the rest of the deck felt really good. Risen Reef felt fantastic. You know, even though, you know, we drew, you know, an extra 10 cards or whatever in game 2 and still bricked in that match, it's still pretty nice. So, overall, I mean, I'm definitely, if I was going to Worcester, I would definitely bring this, and I bought a bunch of these cards already, so I'm pretty excited to go ahead and be able to jam. So, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.